Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learnings. I'm honoured to be joined by Kevin Hollinrake, MP from Thirsk Malton, also founding partner and MD of Hunters as well. So thank you so much for your time today. I can imagine you're incredibly busy at the moment with everything that's going on.
Yeah, it is busy. I mean, we're not in Parliament as often because we're kind of obviously asked to stay at home when we can. Although I've been in, a few times over the last few weeks through the lockdown, but it's still very busy. Yeah, lots of people have got clearly issues with COVID and other things, and normal constituency work goes on, and businesses particularly. I do an awful lot of work in Parliament in trying to promote the cause of SMEs. I got the opportunity I did in life through starting a business, and anything I can do to help people do the same and prosper, I love doing. So lots and lots of queries on that, looking after, helping people with bounce back loans and COVID and coronavirus loans and business interruption insurance and job retention scheme, all these things. So, and it runs two ways. So you get the information from the sharp end, when you want to know what's going on, speak to people at the sharp end. And then it's great that to be able to take it back to Chancellor or to the Prime Minister or whatever, or the various ministers, and say, listen, we've got this slightly wrong, this needs tweaking. And that does have a meaningful effect.
Fantastic. So I'm really interested to get to know you and your journey and how you got into property, and then built up an incredible franchise where I think you've got over 200 branches. And I believe that your property franchise group have just agreed to buy you out, and that's all going through. So we could be here for a lot longer discussing all of that. But how did you get into property in the first place?
Yeah, I think estate agents is one of those things. Not many people plan to go into it. You kind of come by other means, really. And I did pretty well up to school, up till A levels, and messed about too much. Went to Sheffield Polytechnic and studied physics, which wasn't me at all, really. God knows how I went down that route. And then I came out of that quite early. I left after a year and a half, and just at various businesses. I was always quite entrepreneurially minded. Mum and Dad were always kind of very keen on us to go that route, and I loved it, although I was hopeless at it, very ill-disciplined. And I mean, I was selling phones just as mobile phones came in. I reckon I could have been a billionaire by the time I was 30 if I'd actually had some self-discipline. But anyway, those 10 things didn't work out. I was on market stalls and all kinds of stuff, selling army surplus and women's clothes and all kinds of stuff. And then my dad came to me one day and was saying, "Son, you better get a proper job, don't you think?" And I looked in the paper, and there was an advert for a trainee valuer and trainee estate agent, an independent New York. I applied for that, and kind of the rest is history, really. Went from independent to corporate, and then set up our own business back in 1992. Once you're in the business and you've got a mindset to be self-employed, it's pretty straightforward from there to open your own office and then expand from there.
Okay, so you went from market stalls.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was there. I remember those cold days, setting up at 5 o'clock, maybe 4 o'clock in the morning, absolutely freezing to death.
Yes.
Getting absolutely soaked as well.
Yeah.
So just going on your first job then, and training. So what did you learn from that to begin with? And then what made you decide that actually you wanted to become your own boss, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I remember hating it when I first started. To be honest, I remember being really nervous about making my first phone call to a vendor to arrange a viewing. I really a complete fish out of water. And so I really feel for people who come into the industry from scratch, because it can be quite a daunting place. Was for me anyway. But I guess for 6 months I hated it, and then actually I joined as a trainee valuer, and the valuer who I just shadowed, really, a guy called Dean Heavyside, he left after 6 months. And I think he was on like 15 grand. I was on 4, and I was the cheapest alternative. So they gave me the job as the valuer. And I remember I was hopeless at it. I mean, there was on the front desk where we worked, Glenys and Dee, who are negotiators, they always had a stack of the files that were under negotiation. So the filing cabinet was behind them. When they got an offer, they put it on the desk. So the stack of the files, so you can see how busy the market was just by the stack of files on her desk in terms of stuff selling and their desks. And I took over the valuation. It was getting plenty on the market, but I remember looking at that stack about 3 months later, and it was down to like half a dozen files. Normally it'd be 30 or 40. And I suddenly realized it was me. I was valuing stuff too high just to get stuff on, So, you learn from there, and you learn by your mistakes. I made so many of them. So many times I've sat in a house and given people a valuation, and then they said, that's far too much, or that's far too little, or whatever. And sometimes by an order of like 2 or something. Anyway, but so all that stuff did really in the deep end, but you had to sink or swim. And luckily I swam, started to really enjoy it, like the people side of it, like the team side of it, like the competitive nature of it. Because, you really are toe to toe with the competition in our business. It's one of the most competitive sectors on the planet, I think, and especially in the UK. And then kind of opportunities came from there, really. Lots of the market, this was back probably mid-80s, market was going pretty quickly, and then got a job for a corporate, and then a bigger job for a corporate, and then lost my job and set my business up.
Okay, so the big question I want to know is, did you go from £4,000 to £15,000?
No, I think I went probably from 4 to 8 or something. I think one of the false economies. My boss probably thought that was a great saving. Actually, it probably cost him a fortune because the lost sales we weren't doing. But anyway, it was good for me in terms of giving that leg up, and I never looked back really. I do think though that it wouldn't have really mattered what business I'd got into. I think for me, being self-employed was the thing. I wanted my own business. I did aspire even back then to build something of significant value, but more than value, something that I could be really proud of. Legacy is really important in business. A few things that matter in business, it's certainly, building independent wealth, but also independence is key. But I think legacy is probably the most important thing. You want to build something you're really proud of, and that usually is just a culture, really. And I'm really proud of the culture we have in Hunters. We still have it to this day. We've been there was some really ups and downs, but I say we've had some tough times, we've had some good times, we've had no bad times. It's all been brilliant. I've loved every minute of it.
Fantastic. And I can still see the passion that you have and the enthusiasm that you have. It's like starting again.
Oh, totally.
From day one.
Oh, mate, I envy anybody. I mean, people say all the time, oh, I wouldn't like to be young today. My God, I'd like to be young today. I mean, there's so many opportunities. I think more than ever, because the world is being disrupted by, obviously, technology, and with suddenly the acceleration that COVID's brought onto our sector, lots of other sectors. Wow, that's a wealth of opportunities. It creates gaps, and people can go through them. And that's the wonderful thing about the creative destruction that is business. So setting up a business today, what an opportunity. I mean, you might not fail, you might not succeed first time, and I didn't succeed first time, but if you keep at it, if you keep at it, you have a good business idea what you're doing in business, you work hard at it, you can hardly fail, really. I think that's my view. That's my message to my children anyway, and anybody else wants to listen. You can hardly fail if you get those things right.
Brilliant, thank you. Right, so you've just given me loads more questions to ask you. I'm going to come back because I do want to discuss legacy, and I do want to discuss culture, because that's obviously important. But just want to come back when you first opened. And we've got a lot of people that watch this and listen to this and are thinking about setting up themselves, and obviously, very nervous times with what's going on. Where would they go out and get those first properties from? So you started with nothing. You've now built up to over 200 franchises, which is amazing, and credit to you and all your team. That's absolutely fantastic. But there's a saying, every winner was once a beginner. So you were a beginner. You were starting off your business. What did you do to get those properties on?
Oh, we didn't have a single property on the wall. I remember it so well, the whole thing, and we just did everything possible. I'll tell you a funny story. One of the first, obviously, our job is about valuations. Too often in this business, people worry about lead conversion, valuing a house, getting in the market, or customer service, and those things are really important. But lead generation is everything, absolutely everything. And we kind of don't invest enough in it, both in terms of time and money as an industry. And that's what we tell our franchisees all the time. Lead generation is what counts. So anything we can. Anyway, so one of the first valuations I got was this house in York down Stockton Lane. And we were quite excited just thinking of getting a property on the market. It was a nice property, a nice part of town as well. So I went around, knocked on the door, and it'd been snowing. It'd be like today, it'd been snowing, and we got there late because of the traffic and stuff. So this lady opened, I knocked on the door, lady opened, she says, well, you're late. I said, well, yeah, I'm really sorry, but snow and everything. Well, I'm in business myself. You must never be late for an appointment. She's quite posh, like Mrs. Bouquet off whoever it was. And she said, actually, I'm going to cancel the appointment because I think it's disgraceful you're late. Okay. I said, listen, just give me 10 minutes. I'm really sorry. Give me 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I just want a quick walk around, and I'll be out of your way in no time. Anyway, she obviously took pity on me. Look. So I was trying to improve our kind of relationship. And so you're looking for that icebreaker, aren't you? Like a set of golf clubs or a book on the mantelpiece you've read or something like that. Book on the bookshelf. Anyway, my eyes settled on this painting over the mantelpiece. And this painting was of this bloke in this big black cloak, big black hat, really old oil painting, gilt frame. And I said, that's a lovely oil painting. Oh, sure. Thank you very much. That's a family heirloom. All right, okay. And I got a bit closer, and I said, the guy in that painting looks just like Anthony Hopkins. She said, that's my great-grandmother. So, so yes, but the short, you kind of borrow the story, apart from not saying stupid things in houses, is it's all about the valuations. You've just got to do everything. So we rang up the private ads in the newspaper. We spoke to every single person we knew. Every single person we knew. We chased down every lead, everything. I mean, we didn't have much money to advertise. We put advert in the paper, of course, that kind of stuff. But everybody was doing that. So it's just, you just work really hard from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, 7 days a week, just grinding it out. Actually, Saturday afternoons I played cricket. But that's what you've got to do. And it just, absolutely everything is about lead generation. I remember there's an estate agent down in near Cambridge, Huntington area, called Hunters. It was also called Hunters, actually, before they got bought out by the Peru. Very good friends of mine. And they used to have a thing, which was whenever they went to the pub at night, all the staff had to get a valuation in the pub. You had to get a valuation in the pub when you were out. And that's the kind of that mentality. It brings a mentality within your organization that lead generation is the most important thing.
Now, it's very funny you should say that, because that's a game for me. Okay. So whenever I go on my training, I have managed to pick up market appraisals in Italian restaurants, in my hotel, in taxis, wherever I go. And people think I'm crazy. So I turn up because actually you're right. And you touched on about lead generation. So, my big thing is, or that I've learned, is that 95% of agents don't have any stay in touch policy whatsoever once they've sold the property, and it's incredibly scary. So I just demonstrate how easy it is to have that stay in touch policy just by having simple conversations with people.
But that's the point. It's conversation. I think what we're looking for, of course, this stuff is hard. That's the people that do it. And we have people are looking for a silver bullet for solution for this, rather than, and there's a problem with that if you think about it, and we have a expression when we teach our franchisees: this success in this business is not hard sell, it is hard yards. Now, most people don't want to do the hard yards, which is the point. Is this, if you do the hard yards, that's your moat, as Warren Buffett would call it. That's where the others can't come and assail your castle walls when you built your number one market share. So love the hard yards, but do the hard yards at all costs. And this is what you've got to do. So expect we'll do a bit of social media, which is like a broadcast, but nobody listen to, or you just send out a few emails and then keep them just that way. That isn't the point. You've got to do the hard yards, which is really hard work. And it's and it's 24/7 and love it. But if you find a job you love, you'll never work again. And we loved our job, so we didn't mind doing it.
Brilliant. So we've got a few comments here. So hi, Andrea from snowy Perth. Thanks for joining us. Sarah, lead generation should be all the time. There has to be a hunger and an eye for opportunity. Michelle mentioned burger fans. Michelle, remind me, how many properties did you pick up from a burger fan? Because that is a great story. And hi, Patience. Thanks very much for joining us from Kent. Really appreciate it as well. So some great stories there.
Well, I can't remember what one of you, the second person you mentioned, said it. Lead generation should be done all the time. That is so true. And what we tend to do is we do it until we get busy, and then we stop doing it because we're busy enough. And then suddenly you're 3 months later you're quiet again. You don't ever stop. You do it all the time. So we have something called the Big Five. It's 5 things you do all the time to generate the leads, and it's things. And it is about lead generation through your contact base. It is about Google reviews. It's about 15,000 leaflets per office per month going through people's doors, 12 months of the year. It's a branded cars. It's radio advertising. It's a suite of things. It happens all the time. My very good friend and co-director Martin Robinson put a house on the market in Wetherby once, and he asked the client, it was a really good one, he was very pleased, he asked the client why he instructed us rather than the competition. And he said, well, he said, I left the office the other day, I drove past the hunter's office and saw the hunter's office, then I drove down the road, I passed a hunter's mini, and then next morning when I woke up, there was a hunter's leaflet on my doorstep, and I turned the radio on, there was a hunter's advert. So I thought, these people are all over the place, and that's what it's going to look like. You've got this multiplier effect, so that it's almost everywhere you look, there is something with your brand in that person's face. And that, of course, you're still going to lose them to other people at times, but that's going to increase your chances just that little bit. Those incremental improvements in lots of different areas will mean your success or failure, or if you don't make them or you do make them.
100%. So Michelle's replied from her burger fan conversation, roughly 300 properties. It's not a bad conversation at a burger fan, is it? Brilliant. And then also contractors, I find, are a great source as well. I'm turning it on its head, and I'm finding investment properties to sell to our investors. Carly, multiple touch points in every way. And your friends from sunny North Wales, David Harvey says, okay, Kev. So,
hi, David, how are you?
Thanks for joining us. Can I ask you a question then? Because you mentioned leaflets, and I know there was a little bit of publicity in Manchester with an agent that put something about COVID. I don't know whether you saw it or not. It was hot in the press. Maybe that's a good thing. But view on leafleting now with paper and COVID, is that something that you think is a good idea or not?
Yeah, well, I mean, your work is an exemption for COVID rules. So, and to me, the work of lead generation is the most important thing. So, I personally would say, use the, sanitize whatever you need to, but I wouldn't stop leafleting now. Because it's essential to your business. I mean, you go bust if you don't get leads. So, yeah, you put necessary precautions in place, or distributing through the Royal Mail. To be honest, we moved to that when we got bigger. We moved to that delivery solution. But I wouldn't stop that because of COVID.
What sort of message then would you be putting on there? Because it's a bit, do you want a free valuation? Obviously that's not adding value in whatsoever.
I actually don't really think it matters. I think as long as it's a repetition thing. So yeah, the message wants to be eye-catching and attractive and clear, that your message, but it doesn't really matter. I don't think that's the point of difference. I think generally, I mean, we tend to put properties on them because it's just more pick up and quick glance before they go in the bin, that property down the road or whatever. So, but I don't think the key thing is your brand and people showing you're proactive. And so there's no kind of one way to do those that are better than the other, I don't think.
Okay, brilliant. So coming back, so 100% lead generation. So thank you for sharing all of those and your big 5 as well. Very grateful. So going from one office to then over 200 offices was a big step. What made you decide to go down the franchise route, and over the years, what lessons have you learned from that?
Okay, so there's a great principle in a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Dr. Stephen Covey. And one of those principles is you begin with the end in mind. So we always wanted to be really successful locally and nationally. So we always had that ambition to be a national business. And I think it's really important you know where you want to get to. That's not to say business people that want a single office and to run the business that way is any inferior anyway. So whatever you think, whatever end in mind you want, which has got to feed back into your lifestyle and your life's aspirations. That's the most important thing, not your business, what it means for your life. So, but we started with 3 simple principles: brilliant service to the customer, winning the marketplace locally, and we wanted to win nationally, and to have a lot of fun. So we knew what we wanted right at the start. So the key thing about going franchising was the second thing, which was winning nationally. So by 2005, we started in 92. 2005, we've got 10 offices regionally. We were in Manchester, Leeds, York, Harrogate. So we were turning over about 10 million quid, 10 offices. So these are pretty big offices, but we weren't anywhere near national. We think, Christ almighty, this has been 13 years for fun, but hard. And we want to be national. We want to have 200 offices, 500 offices, whatever. So, and then we sort of looked at the options, and to do that group wise was going to be borrowing a lot of money or very slow if we'd opened them all ourselves. So we thought, well, what about franchising? In fact, to get a good friend of mine, Russell Manning, actually from Manning Statons in Leeds, I was sat with him in our Leeds office. I think we were talking about home information packs at the time, and we just talked about expansion. And he said, I looked at franchising. I thought, franchise. I thought, I'm not going to do that. And I thought, oh, interesting. And so I started to research it, and the kind of rest is history, really. So it just, for me, it's a fantastic way to run a business because it helps us. We just mentor other business people, really. We give them a brand, we give them some purchasing discount in terms of portals and very significant discount. We give them the know-how, and we take all the hassle off them and let them do what they like doing, which is going out there and generating the leads and converting them into sales and looking after the customer. And it's I think it's a better model for a estate agency, because we know that the most important thing you can do in terms of customer service is know your market. You've got to know your market as an estate agent in a marketplace. Well, if your staff are leaving every couple of years, as they tend to do in some of the bigger corporates, then how can they know the market? They just don't know the market. So franchising actually pins a person to a location, and there's a really good people. Obviously, there's varying degrees of success. There's no doubt about it. But so for everything we liked doing, A, we want to be big. B, we like mentoring other business people. I always loved that. It was just a match made in heaven, really. I mean, we had a really tough start, really, really tough start to it. Lost a fortune, spent a fortune on it, hit the recession in 2008, kind of went from, we got to 10 offices, we got to 25, 15 franchises. Then we went back, we closed some of our own offices in 2008, and other franchises closed for obvious reasons. We're back down to about maybe 14, 15 offices. And but then grew again from there, and kind of the rest kind of is history there.
Phenomenal, and well done on your recent sale.
Yeah, it's a sad day in many ways, because as I say, I love the business, and most of the companies staying with Glynis, and who's chief exec, and Ed and everybody else. They're all staying with the business, so very little will change. But I'm not going with the business. I will probably feel pretty much irrelevant at that point in time, really, and it's probably time for me to move on, try something else. But yes, I've loved every minute of it.
Fantastic. So can I come back? You started and you talked about culture. So, going from 1 to 10 branches, how did you get that culture into the business? And also, how did you go about and recruit the best people?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot. So we could have done it so much better. So I think, you've got to first establish, I think, how your first office, you're successful. You've got to kind of distill or be able to articulate exactly why you've been successful. and then you make sure everybody else fits into that system. So, and I don't think we did it sufficiently well. I think what you tend to do is we're doing really well, picked up market share pretty quick, worked hard at it, and became the new kids on the block, and got to #1 market share probably within a couple of years in York. And then you just plug holes with people. You just throw people into roles, and you just hope they're going to do stuff you right. That's totally the wrong way. So we should have spent more time recruiting, making sure, and more time just making sure that they did everything that you know works, around that lead generation, around that focus on servicing contacts and calling applicants and vendors and all that thing to generate leads. So I would have systemized our business much earlier. John, my business partner, John Waterhouse, great guy, and we're still business partners to this day. He went into an empty house once, and he came back with an audio tape. That was actually theft, I'm sure with this audio tape at his house. And there's nobody living in the house, so I'm sure they'd left it behind. But and it was got a book called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Yeah.
And if you want to make your business a big business, if you want to have a good lifestyle as well as a business, if you want to keep it small, read that book, listen to that tape, whatever. You get it on the internet these days. And it's brilliant. He just talks about systemizing your business. And then that's the only way to produce a consistent result, is through a systemization of your business. So we did a lot of that after we learned those rules. And we took all our staff to listen to Michael Gerber speak live and that kind of stuff. He's a wonderful guy to listen to. And that's, again, the basis of franchising, really, because it's a systemized approach to tackling certain issues that all agents face. So yes, learned lots, and I wish I'd learned it much quicker.
Thank you. Great book. You talked a lot actually about, or you talked previously about tech. And I think you were involved in Visi Homes many, many years ago.
Yeah.
And another product. So what have you seen change, especially now with what's going on with COVID and lockdown, that you or hunters have implemented that you think, wow, this is great and is making a difference to the customers out there?
Well, first thing I'd say is I walk by so many estate agents' offices these days and look through the window and see people with a mouse, like they stare at the computer screen like that. And that's the opposite of what you should be doing. Your phone should be glued to your ear. You're always speaking to somebody. You're not going to list houses and generate leads like that. So technology has its place. Technology should be. I think we've used technology in our sector really as an electronic filing cabinet. And really, it is not that. It should be a liberator. It should take steps out of the process. That's what it should do. So it should allow people to work remotely without even going back to the office, for example. It should allow tenants to report a fault and for a contract to come straight in without it going through anybody's hands. It should allow a vendor to arrange a viewing or evaluation on the property, or a buyer or a tenant, without touching an agent. It should take steps out of the process. In Hunters, we're just developing some new software, a CRM software completely from scratch, and we call it Skipper, because it skips steps out of the process and takes away things that we don't actually need to do. So that's what technology should do, but that should mean we have more time to speak to clients. That's what it's about. So don't think of this technology will be disintermediated as agents. Far from it. Will be more important than ever, and it's important we use that extra time to compete, spend more time speaking to people.
Brilliant, thank you. So I'm sure you never get asked this question whatsoever. Stamp duty.
Yes. Yes, generally, or extension of the stamp duty holiday.
I think both, to be perfectly honest with you.
But, generally, we should scrap it. And the stamp duty holiday, we shouldn't extend what's there already. We should just allow a period of time for existing deals to go through. If you extend, I'll tackle the second one first. If you simply extended it, it'd be another cliff edge. So what's the point in that? And the cliff edge is the problem, really. So we should simply say, if you've got a mortgage offer by the end of this month, end of February, we'll give you another 2 months, let's say at the end of March, to complete that deal. And that is then fair to people who are expected to get the stamp duty kind of concession and look like it might get held up in the process because of the logjam in conveyancing, which is massive. That's a massive logjam, and I've never known a time when pipelines are so slow to come through. So that's why we should deal with that. Stamp duty generally, it's a really bad idea to tax transactions because it puts a brake on economic activity. And we know how important the housing market is to the economy and to other parts of the economy. And the knock-on effect it has when people move house. Lots of different sectors do really well: legal, mortgages, white goods, all that stuff. You know what it is. But it produces, residential stamp duty produces about £8 billion a year in revenue. And you might have noticed we've already got a problem with our deficit, a bigger problem now since COVID, and that problem is going to get much worse down the line. Healthcare, pensions, social care, debt to GDP, to the size of the economy, is currently about 100% of the economy. According to the OBR, it's going to go to 300% of the economy, 314% by 2060 because of those pressures. So we need more tax, not less tax. So we can't simply scrap it and think, oh, well, it's okay, it'll come back in other parts of the economy. So I personally think we should restructure all of property taxation, council tax, stamp duty, wrap it all into one, make it more proportionate to the value of a property, a proportional property tax. You can Google it. It's quite a few people.
Great, thank you. And likelihood of that happening?
Pretty remote, because it's like all these things, all sensible tax reforms are usually politically difficult. So I think there'll be some changes. I think there'll probably be a revaluation of council tax, and whether that's enough to then, because under that thing of revaluation council tax completely, you could have scrapped stamp duty. But I think it's very, very difficult to come up with a completely new approach to taxation. I think we should on business rates, for example. I think we should just abolish business rates completely. But then you've got 30 billion quid worth of money to find annually, and but I think we should just whack it on VAT. That's what I think. That's fair for everybody. So, but this stuff is politically challenging. So, if you're in a dictatorship, you'd do this stuff straight away. But when you rely on getting voted in every 5 years, it's more difficult.
Okay, you talked about the logjam and people's constipated pipelines, which I think I read there's about 600,000 currently stuck in that logjam. I'm sure since when you got into the industry and when I got into the industry in the 90s, I don't think we've actually seen much change in the process from how it is. So what can be changed in that? I mean, it's incredibly stressful selling a property, and it takes absolutely ages to get a property through from, once you agree it to exchange. And until you exchange, there's still no certainty. People can pull out. We've also seen in Hackney with the searches, they've been hacked as well. Surely there must be a way, and I know there's committees out there trying to resolve this and sort this out. But I mean, I can't believe in 30, 40 odd years, we haven't got any further, especially with all the tech there is now. I mean, I just find it incredible.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and as you say, initiative after initiative looking to digitize everything. I don't think land registry help because they've not really invested in their kind of offering, which can make it easier. Digitizing searches, all this stuff, but we don't seem to be much closer. I think part of it is certainly mortgages are more difficult to come by in terms of the process. There's the checks and balances that lenders have to go through take longer, and the fact that I think conveyancers who used to be some solicitor, probably of all kind of ages and very experienced, who usually take a view on things and be able to kind of read through this pretty quickly. It now seems to move to very much a ticking boxes exercise by people who are less experienced, and therefore, and probably job shares and a lot of these a lot of these conveyancing firms, specialist conveyancing firms, which we've kind of supported as a sector because we can drive revenue at the selling our conveyancing services. So I think we're part of the problem, to be honest. I think we need to look at the whole thing again, distill it, the constituent parts down, and trying to find those incremental improvements on every single step. And I think that's certainly possible. Looking at reservation agreements, which tackles one of the issues you refer to, which I think they use in the US, which may help. But there's no silver bullet solution for this. It's going to be pretty tough, and it's going the wrong way at the moment. And we need to reverse that trend at least and get it back to at least. We used to have a third of the pipeline go through every month, and now it's probably 18%. On average, so low, which helps all, hits all our cash flow and hits the wider economy. If you get acceleration of this, of course, it's good for economic activity. So I wish there was an easy solution out there, but there's not. I think somebody's got to get right in under the bonnet of it and really bring all that stuff together, highlight all the issues, bring it all together and try and facilitate solutions to all those different constituent problems.
Okay, so with your considerable experience, why aren't you the housing minister? why is it a revolving door with housing ministers all the time? I mean, yeah. I don't know how many where we are the last counts, but it seems to be a revolving door the whole time.
Yeah, I think we've had one a year on average for 15 years, I think. So yeah, I mean, it's not a position you apply for. I would love to be housing minister. But that's it's not within my gift to say why or why not. Really, I'll just keep doing the work I do in Parliament, and maybe one day you get that recognition somewhere, whether it be housing or anywhere else. I don't think it helps having this turnover of housing ministers. I think we've got very good housing secretary. Actually, Rob Jenrick, I think he's very business savvy, and I think he's done some good stuff. So yes, I mean, I'd love to, and I do a lot of work on housing with him and others. So a lot of stuff I do feed in. Not that I'm responsible for all the things we got wrong in terms of housing policy over the last few years, and there's been quite a few. But I think generally the direction of travel is pretty good. And but I think you're absolutely right. Housing being one of the key parts of the economy, key parts of the social problems we have as well in terms of affordability. So we really do need a more consistent long-term approach and focus on that, which I think is pretty simple to resolve, actually, affordability problems. And I think we're going the wrong way about it at the moment. For example, I think where we solve our affordability problems at the moment is we allow a load of houses to be built, and some of them get allocated as affordable. So we're getting lots of stuff we don't necessarily need to get stuff that we do need, which is the affordable stuff. So there's some good solutions out there, but it'd be good to have more influence over them. Okay,
well, I look forward to seeing you as housing minister. Okay. I'm sure some people will have a word with Boris and make a difference,
right?
And his key advisors as well. I'm incredibly grateful for your time, so thank you.
You're welcome.
A couple of final questions. What do you do to self-develop and self-improve? You mentioned the E-Myth, which is a really good book. You mentioned Stephen Convey, which is a great book. Any other suggestions that have helped you over your career?
Oh, tons. I mean, yeah, one of my greatest inspirations is reading, actually, and not just books, novels, but about other people. So inspirational characters in business, Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett, James Goldsmith, whoever. I take great inspiration from them. So it's amazing how people don't spend enough time listening to other people who've done stuff. I've got to say, most of the things we did at Hunters, I told you a story about Russell Manning, but most of the stuff we did at Hunters, we copied off other people. We were part of the home sale network, and the legends of that network were Romans, and we spent time with Dale and with Peter, and just they'd tell us everything. And so, too often when we've got a problem, we try and solve it by creative thinking, when really find somebody who's already solved it, ask them how they solved it, maybe tinker with it a little bit, but more or less you can get a ready fix straight out the box. So generally it's been learning from other people, and it can be people around you, it can be the people on the front line, it can be people in books, it can be people who have been really successful. and that's where I'd recommend anybody to go to.
Brilliant, brilliant advice. So knowing what you know now, if you were opening again, what would you do differently?
Well, okay, I'd be more sure of myself. I think that sounds a bit arrogant, but yeah, a bit Gordon Ramsay. Okay, he might not be seen as the most kind of sensitive, most sensitive management style ever, but he knows exactly what a plate of food looks like, the right plate, what exactly looks like, and he won't tolerate people taking that food, letting that food go out unless it's perfect. Unless it's perfect. And we should be like that in our businesses. Not that you should be have to bawl and shout or anything, but you should just insist on high standards. This is what I believe. This is how we put houses on the market. This is how we grow our market share. And I want you to adopt the same style and train people really well. Give people the skills, training, and don't be afraid to let people go if they can't hack it. Because if you let people kind of stay in your organization who are not up to it, it's bad for them, it's bad for your organization. So just be much clearer exactly what constituted success, what it looked like, and make sure everybody within your business follows it. And for us, it really was, Michael Gerber, lead generation, 3 parts of your business: lead generation, lead conversion, customer fulfillment. Those are the 3 constituent parts. You name me any business in the world that doesn't have those 3 parts, and only those 3 parts. There are none. That's exactly what they are. And so you need to be brilliant at all those 3 areas. And the only thing I'd add to it, though, you need to have a lot of fun. We loved it. We had great fun. It was tough at times, it was bloody worked hard, but we always go to the pub and have great fun afterwards. So yeah, in short, I would just be so clear exactly what the standard was and help people to meet the standard, and tell them how they're doing against the standard and help them to meet it, tell them how they can improve, keep reviewing it, but ultimately, take the good people with you. I'm afraid not everybody can complete the journey.
Yeah, making sure you got the right people in the right seats of a bus.
Absolutely. It's a brilliant book. Good to Great, Jim Collins. Yeah,
fantastic book. Kevin, thank you so much for your time. I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you all for watching or listening, whether you're watching now or in replay. Incredibly grateful. Loads of exceptional tips and insights in there, so thank you. We look forward to seeing you as Housing Minister as the next one very soon, and be interesting to see what happens with stamp duty. But thank you so much for your time, and have a great afternoon. And thank you very much. And thank you all for watching. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Really enjoyed it.